レイヤーを選んでください。
我こそは劉備玄徳なり。
Released in 1989 by Capcom, Dynasty Wars is based upon the Japanese manga Tenchi Kurau, as the game is called in Japan, which is based upon the battle between the Kingdom of Shu and the Yellow Turban Rebels. During the game, each of the two players can assume the roles of one of 4 Chinese generals riding on horseback from the 3 kingdoms, in an attempt to smash the rebellion. Playing the game requires the use of 3 buttons: attack left, attack right, and a special move, which I hardly ever use. Throughout the stages you'll come across coloured orbs. Collecting yellow orbs increases the experience points of the player in order to level up, where he gains more vitality and uses stronger weapons. These weapons are upgraded from every 3rd blue orb collected. With 8 stages in total, the game does kinda drag on in this day and age. However, I can imagine the lack of gameplay variety was more tolerable back in 1989. All the home ports were handled by Tiertex, so you know what that means, right? Yep, they're all gonna be a complete steaming pile of shit. Let's take this Amiga port for example. You can't even skip the introduction. Then once the game starts, you're treated to an incredibly choppy, slow mess. The awful controls suffer from more lag than you'd expect, and the animation is terrible. I mean, most of the time, you can't even tell if your character's swinging his sword. Then there's the collision detection. Saying it's awful is being rather nice. I'm not joking when I say it's impossible to know when you're actually hitting anything. Just like the Amiga version, you can't skip the intro in this Amstrad port. That's the least of your problems here though. The game is basically a colorized version of the ZX Spectrum game, however this port is mind-numbingly slow. There's few too many enemies on screen, which doesn't help the already monotonous gameplay, but then again, it's just as well, because it's not that easy to hit them anyway. The fire button doesn't seem to work 90% of the time, unless you hold it down.
レイヤーを選んでください。
The best of the home ports of Dynasty Wars, and it's easy to see why. NEC were behind this PC Engine CD version. It's extremely close to the arcade, and in fact could be mistaken for the arcade game at first glance. Unfortunately, the game does suffer from flickery graphics, as some of the stages are cut down. Also, in a very odd move, the in-game music is chip generated, and in this particular video, it's running too fast. The C64 version is probably the best of the 8-bit ports, but even then it's not that good. At least this port has the fire on stage 2, which is missing from the Amstrad and Specky ports. One strange point about this port is the actual game playing area. The freedom of movement has now been replaced with 3 depths of play. Enemies and yourself can only travel on the top, middle or bottom of the screen. The ZX Spectrum port was originally released as a 48K game, hence why there's no music. I do believe it did get a 128K version with music in the end. No matter which version you play, you're still going to get the same game. On the plus side, the speed at which the game runs is respectable. The graphics are also quite detailed, however, it's way too tough and it can be hard to see what's going on at times. Since the Amiga version is a port of the ST game, it should come as no surprise that you can't skip the intro on this version either. The ST port is basically the same rubbish that's on the Amiga, but due to the smoother frame rate and higher speeds, it seems easier. And let's take a look at all those versions of Dynasty Wars running side by side. There's not much to choose from, but which version do you think is the best?